Welcome to Shield of Sisters, where we stand together as a beacon of hope for those who've served our country and faced unimaginable challenges. I'm Shannon Huff, your guide through stories of strength, resilience, and healing. Our mission to empower women who face sexual assault in the military, to find their voice, reclaim their power, and rebuild their lives. Join us as we share journeys of triumph over trauma, offer support, and shine a light on the path to restoration. Together, we are the Shield of Sisters. Welcome back to the Shield of Sisters podcast. This is Shannon Huff, and we are on episode 2. Our guest today is Nicole. Thank you for joining me. I know it's never easy to talk about what's happened during our military service, so we appreciate you being here and sharing what you're comfortable with. I know it's never easy to tell everything about our trauma, about our stories. But if you would just start real quick with your military service, what you did in the military, what branch?
Sure. I'm Nicole Hanson. I was a physician assistant in the United States Army for active duty from 2004 to 2008, regular guard until 2013. Because I was a PA, that's what I did. But active duty wise, I actually did Homeland Security with the Weapons of Mass Destruction Civil Support Team here in Wisconsin. So that was fascinating. I don't know that I would have joined the service had I not been approached by the team. I got to become a hazmat technician and go in the big bubble suits on air and do all the crazy stuff associated with it and decon and practicing medicine with people in those suits. So,
wow.
Right. And so we traveled, we met so many people. I've taken Chelsea Clinton to the bathroom.
Well, now that's interesting.
Well, I ended up for quite a long time on active duty as the only female out of 22. And we did quite a lot of election associated stuff, and so when she and Hillary were in town, she was like, I gotta go to the bathroom, and it was at the Monona Terrace, and from the back entrance, like where they come in for, what do you call it, the security entrance. Mm-hmm. There's no bathroom. You have to go up to the third floor.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I better just take you because you'll never find it. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I find it interesting how many women veterans I talked to that they were the only female in a unit. Mm-hmm. And that kind of brings to question, or maybe not question, it kind of brings into light why there's 1 in 3 who are sexually assaulted who suffer MST, because we're alone.
Yep.
And I mean, we all find our battles. You know, we find that one guy who's our big brother, who's our protector, who, but they can't be everywhere with us all the time. So...
Yep. Mine eventually became my husband, and my assault was after he left.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's...
Yep.
And we tend to marry a lot of our brothers, too.
Was never the plan. And then he decided he was leaving for school and moving 2 hours away, and I went, huh? But I need to see you every day, all day.
Yeah.
And it just kind of clicked, and that was it.
Wow. But, yeah. So how long have you been married?
15 years.
15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yep.
That is awesome. We've been married 26 this year, so.
That's amazing.
Expecting our grandbaby.
Grandbabies. Yay.
So, with however you feel comfortable, if you want to tell your story or not. But one of my questions I always think about is, after your trauma, what were some of the hurdles you faced daily? You know, what do you think about on a daily basis that you kind of go back and go, I could have done this differently, or why did this happen to me? And what do you do when those hard moments come along?
Okay, so I'll just share as much as I can from my story. So yes, I was part of a unit of 22, and for a long time, the only female, and felt like I got along with the gentlemen well and had some that I could trust to hang out with. And I mean, I was in my early 20s, single, because my husband had just left. And I went out with 2 gentlemen that I worked with. I had 1 beer, and I woke up on a bathroom floor with my clothes all disheveled and at my feet and my shirt pulled up. I don't know how much longer later. I was supposed to be the designated driver that night. That didn't happen. I don't even really remember getting home, but I remember waking up and one of the 2 of them was in my bed molesting me, and I at least was able to get him out of my house at that point. Yeah, so for me, I think the issue has been mostly trust. Mm-hmm. These were people I thought I could trust. And then you go back to work and have to face them every day, and they act like everything's fine and nothing ever happened. And then you're put in the position of, how do you say anything when they're acting just fine? Mm-hmm. So eventually I just kind of blocked it. I blocked it for a long time, or I thought I did. For me, it's public bathrooms. That's the part that gets me most every day. Obviously, certain bathrooms are more reminiscent. Mm-hmm. For those that aren't familiar with Madison, there's kind of this main, what we call the belt line, that goes east-west, and because of the wonky having to go around lakes, it tends to be the most common. But the bar that it happened at is off the belt line, and you can see it. Oh, yeah. So I find myself avoiding the belt line, and my husband forgets, and he's like, "Why do you always go the long way?" And
well, there's a reason. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes avoiding triggers isn't always a bad thing.
Yes.
My heart hurts when we talk about, one of the big things in the military is going out with your friends. I mean, we go out. That's what we do. We go out, we drink, we have mandatory fun. Mm-hmm. You have commander's call. Yep. And those are your battle buddies. Those are the guys and girls who are supposed to have your back. We've got your six. And to have to face them every day, I can't imagine, Nicole. That just is so hard.
I'm glad it happened at the end of my active duty service time, or pretty close. I mean, it was within a year. They asked when you go through your compensation stuff about, what did work look like after? And I was like, well, I went to lacrosse 2 hours away every single weekend after. I avoided I took all my leave. I avoided being there as much as I could. And I just, you avoid.
Yeah. Did you report?
No. For the longest time, felt like it was my fault.
Yeah. Because you had a beer?
I had a beer, and I should have known better.
And we hear that a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, we were just at a retreat, and I can't tell you how many of them said it was my fault. And, you think back and you go, well, how is it my fault? I didn't say, hey, assault me this weekend. Hey, I'm going to have a beer, so do what you want. It. Yeah.
Put something
and that's the only thing that could have happened to you, because we're Wisconsin girls. We drink,
Yeah. And at that point, I was routinely, the drug made me really sick. I went right to the ER the next day. My blood alcohol was 0 because I had only had 1 beverage. But so they were convinced. And I think because they didn't call police or encourage me to report right then and there, they didn't do a sexual assault assessment. They just sent me home because I was thrown up. And I think that was part of, well, they didn't take me serious, so why would anybody at work? And when you're talking about people feeling like it wasn't their or was their fault, it took me until I found out this service member was eventually demoted because of inappropriate relationships, or not relationships, inappropriate activity with female soldiers in a different unit, to realize, one, I should have reported, because now someone else has been assaulted. And so then I felt like it was my fault that way. And two, the assault for sure wasn't my fault, because he's a repeat offender.
Well, I'm glad you realized it wasn't your fault.
Right.
But it also isn't your fault that he did it again just because you didn't report.
Right.
And I know you know that in your mind.
You do, but you never want another female
right.
to go through it. So then in your heart, you're like, if I'd have had the courage. But at least they had the courage.
Right.
I'm so proud of those ladies for ensuring that he was dealt with later on.
Did you go to a civilian hospital?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm kind of shocked. Usually you'd think, a civilian hospital would be much more inclined to
do the
hoped. Hard things.
You would have hoped.
Yeah, wow. Because I went to a military hospital, and they did all the things. And I don't know if that was almost worse, because you've already been violated, and those tests, and they're violating.
They are.
They're horrible.
Having worked in an ER as a PA for most of my career, I either did internal medicine or ER, and every single female that had a sexual assault exam said it was as bad or worse. I didn't ever have any male sexual assault victims, just luck of the draw, but I'm certain it would be for them as well.
Yeah. And I'm not discouraging anyone not to get it tested, because they are helpful. They do help prosecute. They're necessary. But it's kind of like when you go to the VA and have to tell your story. It's re-traumatizing. It's triggering in a lot of ways. But, I would tell any of our sisters out there, report.
Please do. And I guess more what I was trying to get at is, please know that the staff knows we are traumatizing you, that we are not oblivious to the fact that this is awful.
Yeah.
And that if there was any way to get around it to still help you, we would.
Yeah. And I'm glad that there are people out there, physicians, nurses, whoever does the test, know that it's hard. And you see it on TV, and they're like, try to be as kind as possible. I kind of feel like the more we tell people, report, do this, the more likely they are. But then again, the numbers actually went down this year. And I think it's because they weren't reporting, not because there's less assaults, because there's those repercussions. There's the, fear of your chain of command, fear of your assault, the person who assaulted you, coming back at you. There's so many fears. And so, we talk about the restricted, the unrestricted reporting, which is, reporting it and then doing nothing about it. I don't quite understand, but at least someone knows what happened to you.
Right.
And you can always come back and do something. So
right.
I guess educationally, any report's a good thing, but have you gotten to the point where you don't think about your assault every day? Or are you still there's still every day in the back of your mind, you're thinking about it? Or have you gotten to a point where you're like, okay, yeah, it happened. I'm going to live my life and be...
I am... Because my husband is still active duty and now actually back in that unit, there are moments probably every day that he'll mention something about work or the role that person played when they were in the unit. and it'll be triggering. I avoid as many mandatory fun functions as possible. It's taken me a long time to want to be around other veterans again.
Yeah. I had that too. Yeah.
But no, it's not. I'm not having nightmares anymore. Fewer triggers, but no, not thankfully daily.
That's awesome. You know, one of the things we talk about at retreats is putting the weight of our trauma down, and knowing that even if you pick it up, you can put it down. You don't have to carry it with you. And I think that's so important, because what happened to us is never going to go away. There's always going to be those times where you pass the bar, where you go to the unit, when you see somebody that might even look familiar, and your heart starts racing, and that's when you make those decisions on how you're going to react. Are you going to let it put you back in your house for days on end? Are you going to, look at things to do to not be here anymore? What is some of the best advice you can give to other women and even some of our brothers who struggle on a daily basis, who haven't quite gotten that to the point where it's not a daily battle?
As much as it's often difficult to get consistent mental health care, start therapy. Until I hit a breaking point, and that was mostly related to, I have a lot of, as Shannon knows, I have a lot of medical conditions, but only when I started doing routine, and in my case, I did, pretty intensive daily therapy for a while, and let the trauma come. I talked about it in group. I was like, I opened Pandora's box. I stopped blocking. I stopped pushing, or thinking I was pushing, because I wasn't. Only when I started truly working through it and allowing it to be present and accepting, these are my triggers. This is why this happens. This is why that happens. And it's okay that happens. Did healing start to come? And it's unfortunate that, it's like, well, I shouldn't have to go to therapy to get rid of this. I wish there was a easier way for it to go away, but I don't know that there will be.
Because it's such a betrayal and a violation, and so many things happen physically, emotionally. The therapy is so vital, and working through what happens. And there's a lot of different organizations out there that do retreats. They do equine therapy. They do outdoor therapy, whatever therapy
right,
is.
It doesn't
have to just be sitting down with a counselor,
correct,
going over your story, talking about your triggers, talking about, well, this is how you feel. Sometimes just getting out and walking in nature.
Or for me, it's art therapy. And there's times where my art is really violent and dark. And then there's other times where it's flowery and light. Depends on the day and the mood. But I found myself letting the anger out. I wrote the same word 100 times in my journal. I drew fires and things like that. And I still do. On my bad days, I'm like, okay, it's an art day. Get it out. Get something out.
Yeah.
And I get it. There's times where access is hard.
Yeah.
But keep searching for those resources. And, I said you may not necessarily have to go through therapy to succeed. because maybe you have a trusted person in your life that you feel comfortable being that person for you. But again, my person was someone I thought I could trust, my assailant. And though I trust my husband with my life, he also knew that person. So I think there's a lot of, for me, I don't want to put it on him either. Like the anger, he just gets angry thinking about what someone we thought both of us were friends with did. And so I still struggle with trust, and in a lot of different situations because of it. But if you have someone that you don't feel like it's too much to talk about with them, then great. They can be your therapist too.
Yeah. How long did it take you to tell your husband?
I told him right away.
Wow. That's trust. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, partly because we had only been dating not even a year. And to me, the reason to tell him was because it felt like cheating.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't cheat. This is what happened. But you need to know. And
you're lucky because I've heard many stories where the spouse is like, nope, you cheated. Yeah. I don't believe you. They believed the other person, especially in the military. Yeah. Especially when it's a military family member and a unit member. There's often that I don't believe you thing. That's my battle, so you're lucky to have had that. And I think that might have helped you more than,
I'm sure that it did, was to have him and my mom both believe me right away. Yeah. Because I made her come with me to the ER. And even she was a little surprised that, and kind of, you kind of throw your hands up like, oh, we're not going to do anything else here today. Like, this is it. But knowing she and he believed me does probably have an impact on where I was with it. I don't know. And maybe he trusted me because, like, when I look back, this is a gentleman that always joked, if I'm in a different zip code, it doesn't matter, when it came to cheating on his significant other. And I always thought it was a joke, because he had never made any innuendo to me. He just said that around me. And so I think my husband maybe knew more about his behaviors than I did. So he didn't have any issues trusting what had happened.
Well, we're going to pause right here and come back in our next episode. And for those of you who are watching or listening and you've been assaulted in the military, you've experienced MST, and you haven't reported, there are so many new resources out there than from when I served. There was no SHARP, SARC, any of those. You went to your chain of command. There's so many resources out there. So please make sure you report, even if you do it restricted, unrestricted. The resources are there for a reason. So we'll come back in episode 3, talk a little bit more to Nicole, share a little bit more advice and a little bit more discussion. And so we thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you the next time. This is Shield of Sisters. Subscribe now and join our community of survivors, advocates, and allies.